Now, last year, the iPhone 11 series, the 11 Pro shooting this video, introduced a step change in capability, battery, imaging, speakers, without changing the design language. This year, the iPhone 12 series changes the design with merely an iterative improvement in what the phone can do, which sounds a little lukewarm in terms of recommendation, but in fact, there's still a lot to like, not least the use of OLED in the cheaper iPhone 12 here, dramatically better in every metric display-wise than the LCD effort in last year's 11. It's the same full HD, HDR10 capable, Dolby Vision capable, wide colour gamut OLED display as the more expensive 12 Pro. It's gorgeous. Reminiscent of the iPhone 5 and later the SE 2016 here, there's an aluminium band around the perimeter with flat sides, in theory for an easier grip, though precisely no one's going to carry an £800 phone without a case. I was a fan of the design first time round, and it's good to see it back, enabling a size change. For example, the 12 here is 4mm shorter and 4mm narrower than last year's iPhone 11, yet the display is the exact same 6.1-inch diagonal, which is a pretty neat physical magic trick. This, of course, is the product red edition of the iPhone 12. It's a slightly peachier shade than on the SE 2020, which is curious, but oh well, it's still made for a good cause. Face ID is still the way in. The iPhone 12 was past the design stage before COVID-19 took over the world, so there was never any question of Apple reverting to more mask-friendly Touch ID. By the way, Google's Pixel 5 going, quote, back to fingerprint recognition for software and cost reasons was just a stroke of luck for Google, as that phone was also past the design stage before the pandemic hit. The stereo speakers are identical to those on the iPhone 11 range, i.e. pretty good, not too imbalanced, plus there's the usual Apple octave shifting trick for sub 100 Hz frequencies, meaning that the deepest bass at least gets heard, if not 100% authentically. Here's a demo. Full volume, iPhone 12. Coldplay at Glastonbury 2011. Plus the inimitable punch that comes from Dolby Atmos processing. Love it, love it. Inside there's the latest A14 Bionic chip from Apple, more powerful than ever and based on 5nm technology. The iPhone 11's A13 was 7nm. The smaller the chipset die, the lower the power needed to run it and the faster it can run. I don't expect chip die size to reduce beyond 5nm anytime soon, but the A14 is patently more than fast enough for any game, any video processing, and as usual, the same chip sits inside all four members of the iPhone 12 range. There's 5G here in sub-6 form, so similar to LTE, but with extra technologies boosting it. It's for future-proofing for most of us, since the technology is kind of in its infancy across most of the world, both in terms of implementation and rollout. But when your town starts at 5G transmitters, your device will be ready, which is good. The camera systems on the iPhone 12 are identical to those on its predecessor. Not a bad thing, with just a bump to f/1.6 on the main lens. This lets in 26% more light and helps with low light shots, of course, but there's more to imaging than physics these days, with the new A14 chip having enormous capacity for extra image processing, from 10-bit HDR to low-light multi-frame analysis, from night mode portrait shots to low-light selfies. This is the year when computational photography really kicks in on the iPhone, I think, across all three cameras on the phone. That's two here, one on the front. On the Pro range, it's 3, and one on the front, 4. See the gallery of example photos here. The iPhone 12 is a very decent camera phone, though there are two caveats arising from the lack of telephoto lens. In terms of quality, it's effectively limited to 2 times software zoom. Ignore what Apple says about going to 5 times in the UI. Portrait shots use the main camera by necessity here, with the ultra-wide providing depth information. This compares to the telephoto being the base image on the Pro range, with the result that here on the iPhone 12, to get proper portrait shots, you have to get scarily close to your subject, which isn't ideal. Expect to crop later. A lot. Images have gone a little Samsung, mind you, in that for this generation, Apple is applying extra edge enhancement to everything. Personally, I prefer a purer look to images, but I understand why companies do it, make more pop and more wow on the phone screen, and damn anyone who wants to go further on large displays. Hopefully Apple dials things back a bit in updates. That A14 chip's power is used well in video mode, with the iPhone 12 supporting optional encoding with Dolby Vision, 10-bit HDR, up to 4K 30 frames a second. The Pro goes up to 4K 60. Essentially, frames are color graded and analysed in real time to keep the HDR consistent. No more patches of random pixels and areas of constant colour in dim conditions, and better handling of true HDR conditions with bright sun and deep shade. Though do see the subtitles and caveats in this demo clip here. Test video here on the iPhone 12. Sunny autumn conditions, optical and digital stabilisation, all very clever. Notice that you can't go out to the wide angle while shooting video. Unless you start in wide angle, then it never switches to the main. It's all rather peculiar. On the 11 series you could switch between lenses. Anyway, we're arriving at a scenic subject, so I will demonstrate software zoom. We're at 1080p for the phone show, software zoom on the main lens on the iPhone 12 Pro. This is 1 time, this is the handy zoom wheel. This is 2 times, and it maxes out at 3 times software zoom, which is probably fair enough. On the, of course, the Pro models you get the telephoto lens, which takes it up to about 7 times, and that's back to 1 times. iMovie and Photos on the phone have been upgraded as part of iOS 14.1 to handle these video tweaks. Apple's software stack, from capture to editing to production and sharing, is often underestimated, but I think it's utterly compelling, especially looking at what's around in the Android world, where everything's very patchy and DIY. Here, just as with the iLive suite on the Mac, whose handling of video especially has always been more complete than that of Windows. In fact, it's been the sole reason that I've been a Mac user for the last decade. iMovie, that's it, one reason. To think that you can shoot optically and digitally stabilised Dolby Vision 4K video handheld, then sit down on a park bench, edit them together with professional transitions, overlays and titles, then upload to YouTube, all on your phone, no desktop needed. That's pretty impressive. All the iPhone 12 models have a ring of over 20 tiny magnets under their back glass and around the Qi wireless charging coil. The idea is that the latter lines up more precisely with Apple's new MagSafe charger, which turns on its head the usual concept of a large Qi pad in which you try and guess how to place the phone so that the coils line up. Here the phone snaps to the small circular pad in perfect alignment. The battery in the iPhone 12 is 2815 mAh, several hundred milliamp hours less than in the physically larger iPhone 11, which is as expected. Apple quotes identical music, video standby times for each generation, so the smaller battery in theory is compensated by the more power efficient chipset. Now, I've been using the iPhone 11 Pro shooting this for the last year, so I'm very used to how it performs in terms of battery longevity. It's still at 98% health, by the way. In practice, the 12's battery here was lower after a heavy day of use than my iPhone 11 Pro under similar conditions by about 20%, which kind of sounds right given the larger physical cell in the older phone. But I do feel that despite the A14 chip's 5nm efficiencies, the iPhone 12 range won't quite see the same hero battery life as on the 11 Pro series. In addition to slightly fiddly Qi charging, there's also wired charging through the Lightning port at 20 watts, so 4 amps at 5 volts, at which rate the recharge time from empty is about an hour and a half, with 50% around the hour mark. Yes, you can get dramatically faster charging times in the Android world, but at the expense of having to use proprietary charging techniques and equipment, and possibly seeing battery degradation long term. £800 for the mass market 64GB iPhone 12 seems high, but you do get the same top-rated OLED screen and battery as the Pro, the same faster chipset, 5G support, Dolby Vision video, MagSafe, and so on. It's hard to quibble with the price too much. However, the iPhone 12 Pro, looking identical apart from an extra lens here, starts at the full 128GB for £1,000, so only £200 more. And this also gets you a tougher stainless steel frame, 2GB more RAM, the extra telephoto camera, more imaging flexibility, and far better portrait camera shots, plus LiDAR to help with low light focusing and no doubt interesting and fun applications in the future. So this is the one I'd recommend personally. But yes, both a lot of money. If you're really strapped, get the iPhone SE 2020 for £400 or so and enjoy fast iOS for an awful lot less. Watch this space for a full review of the real star of the iPhone 12 lineup, the iPhone 12 Pro Max, in November. Extra screen, bigger camera lenses, bigger sensors. I can't wait.